Hi there, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace. Today we're talking about how to store your free flight airplanes. For those of you that fly radio control, you should watch too, because I think you'll gain some information from this that'll be useful to your side of the hobby as well. But specifically, we're going to talk about rubber-powered airplanes because storage can be a bit of an issue with these. Now, this is a typical size rubber model. And so in terms of having enough space in your home to have this airplane, that's not really a big problem. What is a bit of a problem is these are fragile because they're built with lower power to weight ratios. For your scale models, they're built very precisely. Your endurance models are built in a refined manner to try to get as much flight time out of them as possible. So the result is they're fragile and they're intricate. You spend a lot of your time adjusting that airplane to get it just right. So you don't want it warping or twisting. You don't want to lay other airplanes on top of it or what have you. So as a result, even with a plane like this, having a box would be a nice idea.
And boxes, it could be something like this.
Yeah,
that's right here in front of them, or any of those boxes.
Yeah, so
Rubbermaid containers are great for them.
There are probably 30 airplanes in those tubs up there, maybe more. So that should just give you an idea of kind of what we're doing. And those airplanes, I mean, they're broken down, removable wings, tails, etc. The propeller on this one's removable if that were of any help. But what I'll show you is just to give you an example. And I actually did not build this box, but this was a convenient one to show off. Sorry about the unhappiness in the background. But this is a very large no-cal scale model right here. This is a no-cal Hostler Fury. And what I just want to show you here is that there are fixtures in here to keep the airplane out of contact with the rest of the box and from bumping against things and so on. And yes, there are parts for an F1D in there. That actually is not an F1D I built. This is one of Steve Brown's old F1Ds. So anyway, the propellers sit over here in a rack. So a lot of people will have multiple propellers per airplane for indoor flying, and that's just a convenient way of doing all of that. So anyway, that's just one example of how to store smaller airplanes. This is not a super small one, but it's just a convenient way to say, okay, I've got this in its box. I can now chuck it in a closet or whatever. I don't have to be concerned about laying things on top of it or whatever. So it's there, it's good. When I want to go to a contest, stick it in the back of the car. Nothing's going to roll over and squish it. I mean, unless it's something heavy. Now, that all being said, most of us build little airplanes like this because we don't have space for bigger airplanes. So let's talk about big. Let's talk about really, really big. This is the largest outdoor rubber-powered airplane I've ever built. Actually, no, by wingspan, this is the largest rubber-powered plane I've built. Not by wing area, but by wingspan. So a lot of you would probably like to have an airplane this size, but storage is a problem because this is big and it's fragile. Most of its fragility is not in terms of, I mean, those wood sizes most of you can handle. The problem is that when you expand it out to this size, now it becomes fragile because you run into things and all of that happens. So what I want to talk to you about is how to design one of these airplanes or take an existing design and make it a little bit more civilized for keeping it at home and getting it to contests and whatnot. So this airplane is not designed for this. This is Bud Romack's Dawn Patrol 2, the Mark II version of it. So this Bud does not have storage issues. We'll just put it that way. Bud does not have storage issues. So I have made some modifications to mine so that I can store it in a tighter space. And obviously I'm early in the construction here So I don't have the pylon installed. So I just have this wing rubber banded on this goofy way. So let's take the wing off. Now the wing would be removable anyway. You want that so that you can make adjustments and whatnot.
But even then, I mean, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 60...
So I can barely get it all in the camera. There we go.
Yeah, 68-inch wingspan, so it's pretty big. On the other hand, if I do that, now I've got two 34-inch long panels. Anybody can store this. This is easy. Now, the way that I did this, this is an unlimited class airplane, and so we're trying to build this as light as we can and get it to just still hold together. So what I've got is I've got some polyamide tubing that I've just gobbed up the glue on there to make sure that holds in place, and then these are carbon rods. Now these can slide freely so they could get lost a little bit, so what I'll do is I'll put little stoppers up here to keep these from sliding in like that. And both wings will have that, so I'll keep those captive in between them. We'll put a hook, I'll probably put a little bitty hook on top on either side to draw this together. And we're going to come back into this video. At the end, you'll see this airplane finished out, so you can see some of how I do this.
And then as you can see on the other side, it's the same polyamide tubing idea, just to kind of,
it's exactly the same. They are literally
just so the carbon tubes
mirror images.
Basically, just this will be long enough to go in both to pull them together.
And I do want to mention one other thing for those of you that are not familiar with construction on larger planes like this. This is shear webbing running through here, and the purpose of that is to allow you to use these lightweight wing spars top and bottom. And so this is a very, 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 very stiff wing right here. Cutting that, because it has to be vertical grain, because the bending loads are in here are not in this direction, so you don't want the grain going that way. You want it going vertically, because these spars tend to buckle in and out. So what you're using that webbing for is to just keep those in a straight line so that they don't buckle, and therefore they maintain their full rigidity right up to the stress limit of the wood, which is fairly high. So this can handle fairly high stresses. Now, the vertical tail, you'll notice, is missing. It's just sitting on a table over there.
Yeah.
It is going to be removable as well. We'll have some pins or something for it to drive into. But your, horizontal stab does not need to break down any smaller than that normally. Normally, you can leave your tail to full size. Now, so that means we've got all that broken down, but this... Oh, I so did that on camera. That's fantastic. We'll fix that in a minute. Fantastic. I think that's another piece of it. I can't tell. Nope, it's not. Is that the whole thing? Nope. Oopsies. Anyway, the bottom line is now we've got fuselage as a limiting factor. So, now we're going to break it off too. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. Notice I have broken the fuselage up aft of the rear peg on this airplane. You can, I've seen this successfully done, where you would actually break this motor tube section in half. It can be done. It's difficult. I will have a video on it in the future, because I'm going to build a plane where I'm going to have to do that. But at the moment, I have not ever done an airplane where there was a discontinuity in the motor tube. Doing that break back here is much easier. However, there's still a danger that you have to account for, which is the wing is up here, tail is back here. This is a free flight airplane, so you're not going to get any automated adjustments or anything. So if this airplane gets into a dive, I start to, at higher speeds, get downforce applied. You see what's happening there? So if that downforce causes that to bend, I have now lost all angle between the wing and the stab, and so instead of recovering from that dive, the airplane just continues straight into the ground, and then you get to pick up a bunch of pieces. We have to key the tail section so that we get exact alignment, twisty-wise and everything, and we'll show that in a second.
Okay.
But we have to have this be able to face up against here exactly every single time. It has to give you an exact result every time. And then what we'll do is we're going to have some hooks up here on all 4 points, and so we'll rubber band this together. And so we'll rubber band it together with enough force that it's not ever going to come apart. Now, how I'm keying this in is I built this, let me explain, put it back together a second. I built this as one piece. So it was one piece, and then I took a saw and I just cut all the way through. Now, here's the awesome thing. That cut does not have to be perfect, as in it can be twisted as you go through. It just has to be a continuous cut all the way through so that you don't take out any material other than the kerf width of the blade. So now that means that as long as I make this up here exactly, with a little bit of force applied, it's going to result in the exact same alignment every time. Now, what I then did is I went in and I glued in more longerons, same wood sizes up here, in here, and since this is a straight section, I can then just mate those perfectly up against the walls very easily with CA, soak it with accelerator, and then I can test fit it and quickly surmise that yes indeed I got what I was after, which is an exact fit. End of problem, done. So that gives you the ability to do a two-piece fuselage really the easy way. And like I said, we'll come back once this airplane is built out. I'll show you the features on it, and we'll look at how the rest of that is implemented. And so you'll have that. Now what we're going to do is we'll come back in a minute, and I'm going to show you a different airplane just to give you some more concepts of how we do this. All right, so most of y'all don't know this box. This is a special box. What we're going to do is show you that inside this box is a very large airplane. That is neatly, tidily packed. So this will give you a different perspective. Because on an endurance model, you can make any removable whatever you want to, and everything's great because it's your creation. Scale models, you still have to maintain scale fidelity with all that gadget stuff in there. So without further ado, I present to you the plane you've all been harassing me. I want to see more of it. This is the Spruce Goose. And so neatly packed in here, other than winding stooge or whatever, is everything I need to fly a Spruce Goose, including the propeller locking assembly and so on. So let's set all this out. And like I said, this is just one example of how you would approach this with a fairly substantial airplane. And again, for a lot of you guys that fly RC, this is not that big of an airplane at all. So the way that this works, first of all, is that somehow I jabbed something into one of the wings, and I'm going to have some repairs to do. Take that into account when you're making your boxes, that they can crush the airplanes. What surprises me is this airplane has lived in this box for 8 years now, because I got this box in 2012, I think it was. And it's only been in the past year that it's gotten damaged in here. But anyway, setting that aside, the way this works, a couple features I'll show you. I've got a removable nose here, just so I can stick nose weight up in it. That's all its purpose is. I'm going to save the rest of that for a video specific to this aircraft. There are wing tubes. They're just aluminum tubing that are bound to the wing spars. So the way that I made this happen is the wing was built in one piece. It was built in one piece, and then after I had built the wing, before I covered it, I then cut the wing up. But there was an order in which I did that, and the order is these carbon joiners and whatnot. The trailing edges not so much, but the carbon wing joiners were actually installed in place on this airplane. Go in there, there we go. On this wing, before the wing was cut up. That way I got exact alignment on that wing joiner. And then for the trailing edge, that's not as big of a deal, because all I have is a little metal pin that I embedded in one side. You can see it right there. Mm-hmm. And then I've got a piece of aluminum tubing that I embedded in the other side, and I just drilled through the wood there to get that. So that's really all there is to it. Nothing fancy there. That bugs me that I cracked all those wing ribs. She's still flyable. But anyway, that's just some example of how to address that side of things. I'm not going to put everything together because
that's for another video.
Exactly. The tail follows a similar progression. So this is not the neatest, tidiest thing. If I had kept flying this airplane constantly, I would have refined this some more, because this is actually set up for me to put a dethermalizer on this. But all you have is a little hook down here that you'll run a rubber band across and down to a corresponding hook on the other side, and that keeps the tail in here. The stab was built in 2 separate panels, and then I mated this rib here with a rib right there. And the problem is I ended up having to shim it down so it doesn't look quite perfect, but it's okay enough to get the job done. Got to do some repairs on this plane. It is 10 years old, so I've got to give it some love there. But anyway, the bottom line is that's kind of how you approach everything. I have a storage box for all that hardware for the nose plugs and whatnot, so they live in here. Each nose plug is numbered, so like that's number 2, which corresponds to the number 2 station right here on this wing. You see number 2 written down in there in it. So that's just how you keep records of all that. And I think the last feature I really need to show you here, this one goes on this side because it's got a little tie down eyelet. These are set up with a little wire pin that comes down. That wire pin is actually sprung like that. I'll show you why here in a second. Dual purpose, so that shifts down, and then I've just got a hole in the wood that pin on the front locks into. Now, why would you have it set up like that? Well, in the event that it hits something in the grass, this smacks it free. So that's for some shock absorption. And to those who've asked, or who would wonder, I've never flown it off the water. In theory it could, because it does float. I did test that. I loaded up the whole airplane, ready to go, put it on the water, and it did float. Looked pretty awesome. So anyway, that's just kind of some perspective there. That's how to take a large, complex, very fragile airplane and have it live in a box for the next decade without substantial damage, except when you're mishandling it. Maybe because of taking it out to do internet videos or something. I seem to remember something about an internet video. But then the other thing is you also want to, as you're doing this, you want to remember how you're going to fit that beast back in the box and get it all go in there neat and tidy like, and not get in a fight with itself and all that jazz. Alright, so it has not merely been a couple of weeks since that segment that you saw, seconds ago. It has actually been about 8 months. And in the intervening time, the Dawn Patrol that I was showing not only has been finished, it has been trimmed out, flown, and has been to the top of Pikes Peak. Well, it stayed in the box going to the top of Pikes Peak. But anyway, it has flown at nearly full power. It's done all the good stuff. It's actually doing prep for the U.S. Nationals. So the bottom line is, we're gonna get it out and show you what all we did to make it work.
Oh!
My son somehow thinks this is amazing, even though he's seen this airplane umpteen times and doesn't really care about it. Since I mentioned I'm recording more video on the Dawn Patrol, he gets excited. Okay. So, obviously there are lots of airplanes in here, and this is kind of the point. You can see that there are lots of airplanes that are able to be stored like this. Like these are the landing gear off of a 1936 Burt Judge Wakefield winner. And they plug in, but I did not make these. Somebody else made those. We'll do something on that eventually. Anyway, here are the wings, actually rubber banded as they came when they were retrieved out there. We don't have the wing joiners, actually. I just cut a new set of wing joiners, so we'll get to show the reuniting of everything together. So the joiners fit in like so. I think this set may actually be a little on the short side, but for demonstration purposes, it doesn't matter. Now I set a pair of hooks right here, and so this rubber band locks across, and that just keeps the wing from sliding apart too completely. Now normally I would suggest that you put that up here so it doesn't run into your wing mount, but due to the wing mount on this one, I can put it down here, and this doesn't disrupt airflow over the top of the wing. Pause real quick. So the next thing is we're going to go digging for the fuselage, and as you know, this is the largest rubber model I own, well, the largest outdoor rubber model I own, so it takes up considerable space, or, well, should, except that, in fact, it does not, and you're about to see why. If I can get it disentangled from a Wakefield, another Wakefield. There are so many. So the way this works is, like I said, fuselage is split in half. And the big thing that you have to watch out is I do have a dethermalizer on this, so we have to orient things correctly here. So I've got these 4 rails here. And the way this works is I've got a hook on top and on bottom. Now, I eventually need to do some repairs because I've got 3 cross pieces up here that have broken apart. Let's see here. The main thing that you have to watch out for is to make sure that you keep this DT line free, because you don't want that to hang up. Now, during contest flying of this airplane, you would in general not use a dethermalizer. It's purely a trimming aid. So now we're part of the way together here. The horizontal stab I covered in very, very thin Mylar. This is 2.2 micron. I don't remember when that cut got in there, but I flew it like that out there in Colorado, so no biggie. The way this works is, so I have in the end of this line, I have this little piece of wire tied in here. It's just 032 piano wire, could be a piece of carbon. I have a hole drilled right here, and so when I pull that through, now when I let it go back, it stops. And then all we have to do is take these rubber bands here, lock that in. Now my pop-up stab works as intended. Now I gotta figure out, there it is. The vertical tail, I did something kind of creative with it. I put a couple of 032 wire pins in here, and then I put a hook right here, matching hook here, and then these two little holes so that I can then just drop this guy in, maybe. There we go. And it fits a little tight by design, but just for insurance, you can hook a rubber band down here and yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll do this way. We'll just lock it back there. And so now, the main thing is we just don't want it to slide up. There's very little danger of that, but it is theoretically possible. And then the last thing in the assembly here is obviously the wing. It's very easy. And I've got a couple of spare rubber bands. That is one thing you have to watch out with these. When you're having this many parts being removable, there are lots of rubber bands, and some of them are customized sizes. So you have to take that stuff with you to the field, or you can have your flying session ended by missing a single rubber band. So have everything stored, have lots of spares, maybe even have a checklist. But anyway, so that's the basic configuration of my largest outdoor rubber model. We can demonstrate also the dethermalizer's action. Maybe. So, I'm doing this wrong. There we go. So that's the basic setup. This is one of our older dampers. We're actually using 3D printed resin scroll nowadays. It's running kind of slow. It's cold out. It's a little cold. I think that rubber band's actually wore out. Yeah, anyway, the bottom line is eventually it comes around here and does that. So we'll try it one more time. Because you're supposed to, when everything is working correctly, come here, you. Should be able to let it go like that. Yeah, it's not going. Anyway, like that. Tail pops up. And then the last thing I'll show, because everybody's gonna ask, how well does this in fact fly? And the answer is better than you would ever imagine. I mean, you would imagine it flies well, but not this well. I don't think it gets much better than that. Alright, so that's kind of my take on how to do large model airplanes in a way that you can break them down for easy transportation and not have them take up a huge house. Literally the largest part of this airplane is this segment of the fuselage, which is 40 inches long. There will be a still shot somewhere in this video showing how small this is with everything together when it's disassembled. And so that should kind of make the point to you that you can have large models and not have them take up a lot of space. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this and also some details of the spruce goose that we showed. If you have anything else you'd like to see us demonstrate, tell us in the comments section below, and we'll see you later. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.